In there? Governor Palin was the subject of an illuminating article in this month's Vanity Fair. It came from Wasilla, written by the magazine's national editor, Todd Purdum, who joins us now. Todd, good evening. Thanks for your time tonight.
Good evening, Keith.
Before we start to try to figure out why, she claimed right there in that last clip we played that she said why in that speech. Did she? Did you hear it?
Well, she kind of gave you an a la carte menu of whys. I mean, you could pick she was tired of the game. You could pick that she was better for Alaska. You could pick that she was going to affect change, presumably at the national level from outside of government. So I think the thing that confused so many of her listeners was that she didn't give a reason. She threw all the cards up in the air and said, pick your reason.
You wrote in the article about the senior staff in the McCain campaign. I'll quote the article. They all know that if their candidate, a 72-year-old cancer survivor, had won the presidency, the vice presidency would be in the hands of a woman who lacked the knowledge, the preparation, the aptitude, and the temperament for the job. This is, of course, one among many searing paragraphs in there. Are we confident that the release of your article and then the release of those internal emails with Nicole Wallace, were these all coincidences of timing, or is it possible that this sequence last week was in fact interrelated and not just sequential?
Oh, I think it's all coincidences. I mean, I think my article was probably one of the furthest things from Governor Palin's mind when she made her remarks the other day. And she pointed out that this has been under consideration by her for quite a while. What did stun people expected she might not run for re-election. I think people were genuinely stunned that she quit. But I think one of the things the article points out is just how deep and enduring the divide is within her own Republican Party over her skills and over her future, and maybe to the small degree that the article, reminded everybody that these issues are not resolved. That could have played some small part.
You also wrote about the difficulties the governor had buckling down to study for originally for the interview with Katie Couric, among other problems that occurred in her relationship with the media, also for her debate with then Senator Biden. Andrea Mitchell reported, as this was happening on Friday, that this is it, that she is, no matter what she's talking about, she's not going to run for political office again. Was all this just too complicated for her, or too something? Are we missing some fundamental part of this equation that she knew she was talking about Friday and the rest of us just don't see?
I think in some ways, she liked the ice cream and she didn't like the vegetables. I mean, she didn't like doing the dull, grinding work of getting acquainted with issues. People in Alaska told me that she was very good in the first 15 minutes of any meeting on a policy that she cared about. After that, her mind would drift off. So I think for her, it just wasn't any fun anymore. And it was very hard for her to govern effectively. The legislature was totally at her throat in a way. Former allies had turned against her. So I think she was just sick of the game.
Rush Limbaugh had this statement that he issued while on vacation, necessarily leading the Republican Party. I guess you'd have to make that sort of statement. But he defended her and said, among other things, he does not think this would preclude her from running for office down the road, and that would include the presidency in 12. But obviously, short-term office holders have won or at least sought the presidency. But can you really walk out essentially in the midpoint of a governorship without giving a compelling, easy-to-understand reason why, and then expect to be taken seriously for the White House, especially if it was questionable to begin with that she was being taken seriously before resigning?
Yeah, I don't think it precludes her trying to run, and a person like Rush Limbaugh or Pat Buchanan has wielded great influence over the internal debates of their party without holding an office. I think it raises an awful lot of questions about whether she'd be a good candidate. And when people talked about the comparative lack of experience that Barack Obama had in elective office, by the end of that campaign for the presidency, he had done something no one in history had ever done before. He had presided over, he had run the biggest, most expensive presidential campaign in history, and he'd shown that he did a pretty darn good job of it. So I think what Sarah Palin has yet to prove is that she can really run anything, run it effectively, and run it consistently, and stick with it till the job is done.
Having gone into such depth to profile her in the magazine, did you have an assessment of the staging of this news conference, her own performance in it? I don't want to get, body language but what struck me listening to this originally and then watching it were these excited, and I don't say excited, but quick, deep breaths. She sounded literally like she had just run up to that microphone. Was I imagining things? Was something wrong with the microphone?
No, Keith, I heard it a lot the same way. It almost had the sense to me of a decision that she'd made after some serious reflection, obviously with her family. But once she made her decision, it was almost as if if she raced to announce it, lest she change her mind or think it over again or be persuaded by someone who said, no, you can't do that. And it's almost as if, when you're in some ways a little kid and you've done something bad, you have to confess right away, or you've done something she had to get it off her chest, for better or worse, I think.
Todd Purdum, national editor for Vanity Fair, who profiles now soon-to-be ex-Governor Palin, It Came from Wasilla in Vanity Fair. Great, thank you. Thanks, sir. Who appears to have struck some sort of nerve. Shannyn, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
Well, why do you think the governor's targeting you, and are you surprised to be in the middle of this?
I am surprised to be in the middle of it. I've been a critic of Governor Palin since she became governor, and I've supported her on some issues that I thought were good for Alaska, but I was sort of surprised to be sucked into this, but she's kind of mavericky.
The definition of mavericky, as I understood it from at least the 19th century, maybe I'm just thinking of James Garner in the role, certainly did not involve perpetually casting oneself as victim. This woman has been victimized by her own definition an average of once every 3.5 hours since she stepped into the national spotlight a year ago. Eventually, is there not some sort of supposition that that tactic will backfire?
Well, I think it did backfire on her with the David Letterman scenario, coming out accusing him of things. And then he did apologize. And then I think he actually took the high road on that. But I'm just another Alaska girl, and I wasn't going to apologize. I reported that rumors existed, and people were trying to make sense of her word salad out there, resigning and carrying on like, okay, and I quit, but quitters really suck, but I'm going to quit anyway. Like, everybody was just like, what? And for months and months, we've had, sort of brewing rumors, and as every state does, and now those rumors started coming up to the surface, people saying, could it be this, could it be this, could it be this, because we couldn't make sense of what she was saying. When she said, I gave my reasons, or I don't have to give reasons, people were making up their own reasons, and not just people who were critics, people that were supporters.
And the follow-up to this, I mean, Wayne Barrett put this story about what was loosely described as Housegate, or suggesting some relationship between the construction of her house and the Wasilla Sports Complex. That was in the Village Voice in New York last fall. And if you now Google this subject, you will get thousands of hits, and presumably thousands more than you would have gotten, say, last Thursday, or certainly last Saturday, when she decided to make such a big deal about this. Is there not another fundamental flaw in this equation here? Does the governor and her representation not appreciate that the more of a big deal you make about this, the more threats you throw out there, the more people are going to want to find out what the threat is about? Haven't they just tactically gone about this exactly backwards?
Right, like, don't think about an elephant.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of scenario with that. And yeah, that story came out actually, I think, October 9th or so of last year. It wasn't a story I ever covered. It was certainly a story that I heard rumor of, but on my way driving to the studio, I was listening to the radio, and it was the 25 top rumors of why Sarah Palin resigned, and I think the number one was that she's going to do Michael Jackson's comeback tour now. I mean, there are so many rumors that well, I'm sorry, but my point is that people are talking about all these different rumors, trying to explain it, and now it's become a joke to a lot of Alaskans. I'm sure to the Palins it isn't a joke. I'm sure this is a hard time for them, and whatever she's going to do after this, I wish her well, but I'm glad that she's not going to be making decisions for my state any longer.
It's just, I mean, any governor under any circumstances who lasts less than 3 years in first term, I mean, you presume it has to be Spitzerian at its level of importance to require somebody to quit the office. You can't hang in there for the last 16 months?
Well, I mean, she aborted her term basically, and I know that it's been very difficult for her. I know that the press has been hard, and I think that she's brought on a huge amount of it herself. But there were a lot of people that walked door to door and supported her, and through this last campaign hung in there and gave her a lot of breaks. And she abandoned them, and her supporters here are frustrated. So.
Well, yeah, that was not. It was the voodoo preacher who made it all happen. It wasn't those people who actually helped her. So you got to keep your facts in order, Shannyn. Shannyn Moore of the Huffington Post.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you kindly, and good luck. Stay out of the crosshairs.
All right. Thanks, Keith.
And of course, there is the Sarah.